I know I locked the door. 2 full turns of the key. The soft mechanical click I've heard 1,000 times before. It was routine, as ordinary as brushing my teeth or setting the kettle on for tea. But when I returned from the store, plastic bags biting into my fingers, I saw the lights were already on. And on the kitchen table, a cup of tea, steam curled lazily upward. Still hot. Not lukewarm. Not reheated. Fresh. Steeped recently. I live alone. I stood in the doorway for what felt like minutes, staring at that single mug as if it were a loaded gun. The faint scent of Earl Grey drifted toward me. My brand, my cup, even the way I always twist the tea bag twice on the spoon. Except I hadn't made it. The hairs on my arms stood up, a visceral warning from the animal part of me. I backed out slowly, rechecked the hallway, the neighbors' doors, the floor beneath my feet, looking for logic, for something to stitch this moment into normalcy. Nothing. I went back inside. My apartment was fine, unlocked, but untouched, at least at first glance. And then I saw the photographs. I keep 6 framed pictures lined up neatly along the top of the bookshelf. My routine, always the same order: childhood photo, mom and dad, my university graduation, a trip to Paris, the class of 2022, and a Polaroid of me laughing with a friend. Only now, the order had shifted. The Paris trip, now first. The childhood photo, missing. In its place, an unfamiliar photo. Black and white. Blurry. A hallway I didn't recognize. A shape at the far end. Maybe a person, maybe a coat rack. It was too unclear. I picked it up, flipped it over. On the back, written in faint pencil. Still here. My mouth went dry. I checked every room in the apartment. Cabinets. Under the bed. Behind the shower curtain. I even opened the wardrobe, half expecting someone to tumble out. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No missing possessions. Nothing out of place, except everything that was. I sat down and tried to rationalize. Maybe I was overworked. Maybe I had made the tea and forgotten. Maybe the photographs, maybe I knocked them over, reordered them without realizing. Maybe I barely slept that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every tick of the radiator, every distant car horn made my skin twitch. My apartment, once familiar and safe, felt foreign. Like I had walked into a nearly perfect replica of my life. Nearly perfect. By morning, I convinced myself I was just tired. A mistake. Stress. Nothing more. But the feeling didn't leave. That sense. The subtle pressure in the air. Like someone holding their breath, just behind me. 3 days later, it happened again. This time, I had been out for only half an hour, a walk to clear my head. When I came back, the lights were off, just as I'd left them. But the smell of something faintly sweet lingered in the hallway, like smoke and flowers. I stepped in cautiously. My books, the ones I keep scattered around the coffee table, had been stacked into a neat tower. My blanket was folded. My phone charger, which had been tangled, now lay coiled in a perfect spiral. And on the bathroom mirror, a single, drawn-out smear. Not a fingerprint exactly, but the shape of it. Long, narrow, inhumanly so. I live alone. I told myself this 100 times. A mantra, a denial. I even said it out loud, like a fool, standing in the middle of my living room. I live alone, and yet I felt watched. Not from the windows, not from the door, but from inside. A cold settled in my spine, even as the radiator hissed on. I moved from room to room, checking, touching, whispering questions to no one. The apartment stayed silent, except for the faintest sound I couldn't quite place. Not footsteps, not a voice, just breath. Shallow, barely audible, almost in sync with my own. I turned in circles, trying to trace it, but it was everywhere and nowhere. Finally, I sat down. My hands were trembling. I pulled out my phone, started recording, no plan, no real reason. But I needed something. Proof, maybe. Or a confession to future me when I inevitably doubted myself. I pressed record. My voice came out hollow. I know I locked the door. I live alone. But someone or something was here. I'm not imagining this. I'm not crazy. I know what I felt. This isn't over. As I tapped to end the recording, the screen froze for a moment. Then flickered, only for a second. And in that single, frozen frame, A blur passed behind me in the front camera. Tall, thin, watching. It happened 3 nights after the tea. I hadn't been sleeping much. I left the lights on in every room and the television running low in the background just to break the silence. The walls of my apartment had started to feel like they were holding their breath, waiting for something. I stood on my balcony that night, clutching a chipped coffee mug and staring blankly into the dark. And then I saw it, a flicker in the corner of my eye. Then smoke, a soft, gray plume rising from a window on the 5th floor of the building across from mine. My mind needed a moment to catch up. Then, the burst of orange. Flame, glass shattering outward. Screams followed. Panicked, scattered. Figures stumbling out onto balconies, down stairwells, some wrapped in blankets, others barefoot, dragging children, yelling names. But amid the chaos, one figure didn't move. On the very balcony from which the fire had begun, stood someone. Still, a tall, impossibly thin silhouette. Unmoving in the orange glow, framed by black smoke. I couldn't make out the details of the face. The air shimmered with heat distortion, the flames licking upward, but even through that I knew. They were staring at me. Not at the crowd, not at the street below. At me. We locked eyes, or at least I thought we did. A direct line, balcony to balcony. A cold pressure settled in my gut. My breath caught. And then they were gone. Not disappeared behind the smoke or walked inside. Gone, like a light turned off. I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Looked again. Nothing. The next morning, the news was everywhere. Fatal apartment blaze claims 1 life. One woman, mid-60s, lived alone. Cause, electrical short, officials said. An unfortunate accident. But one line, easily missed, made my skin crawl. Firefighters discovered bare footprints leading to the window, and another set that appeared later, after death had already occurred. There was no follow-up, no speculation, just that one discarded detail. I read the article 3 times, stared at the small photo of the woman. I didn't recognize her, but the image from last night wouldn't leave my mind, the figure on the balcony, watching me as the flames raged around them. Had it been her? No, the posture was wrong. The stillness. And she was supposed to be dead before those second footprints appeared. So who, or what, had been standing there? I tried to brush it off as adrenaline, as misinterpretation, a mind on edge, making meaning out of shadows. But that night, something changed in my apartment again. At 3:11 a.m., I woke up gasping. Not from a dream, not from a sound, from stillness. The kind of quiet that presses down on you. Dense and unnatural. I didn't move. My eyes stayed fixed on the ceiling, my breathing shallow. I couldn't hear anything, not even the hum of the refrigerator or the wind outside. And then, without sound, I felt it. A presence behind my bedroom door. Heavy, tall, not breathing, not shifting, just there, as if it had always been there and I was only now noticing. I told myself not to get up, that if I just stayed still, it would go away. And then, the softest sound. Not footsteps, fingertips, dragging along the hallway wall. Slow, deliberate, each movement coded in meaning, each moment stretching into forever. The pressure in my chest became unbearable. I turned toward the nightstand, flicked the lamp on. Light flooded the room, sudden and jarring. The sound stopped. I didn't sleep again. Morning brought no peace. When I finally got up, I found 3 things that hadn't been there the night before. The TV remote was under the couch, though I remembered leaving it on the table. The book I was reading had been opened, but not to the page I'd marked, to one in the middle. A paragraph was underlined in faint pencil. He thought the past was buried, but it had only sunk deeper. Waiting. In the bathroom, the mirror. This time, the streaks were clearer. Long, vertical marks like fingers pulled downward or reaching out. Worse, they weren't on the outside of the mirror. They were beneath the glass, like something had been trapped inside, clawing to get out. I backed away slowly, not daring to look at my own reflection. And as I turned the light off, for just a split second, I thought I saw another shape in the mirror. A boy, standing behind me. Gone when I looked again. I called a friend that afternoon, James, an old student turned IT tech. Told him I needed help setting up a camera system. I think someone's been in my apartment, I said, carefully leaving out the supernatural parts. He came by that evening, shrugged, and set up a few tiny motion cameras I bought online. One for the living room, one for the hallway, another hidden among my books. I doubt you'll catch anything, he said, half laughing. But hey, at least you'll sleep better, right? I nodded, but I wasn't sure I'd ever sleep again. Not while I could still smell smoke in my clothes. Not while I could still feel eyes on me. Always from somewhere just outside my field of view. Not while I knew the figure from the fire hadn't disappeared. It had moved, and now it was here. The first night with the cameras was silent. Nothing moved. Nothing shifted. I almost convinced myself I'd overreacted. The second night, everything changed. I fell asleep around midnight. Fitfully, the hallway light stayed on, as usual. All doors cracked open just enough to see through. I thought if I left nothing to the imagination, it couldn't surprise me. But imagination had nothing to do with what happened. I woke up again at 3:11 a.m. Same stillness, same pressure in the air, like the world had paused and held its breath. I didn't hear anything at first. Then, the faintest creak. From the living room, I sat up in bed, every nerve on fire. My heart pounded, my body screaming to stay still. But I moved anyway, slowly, quietly. I stepped barefoot into the hallway. The air was cold, colder than it should have been. I tiptoed toward the corner and peeked. Nothing. The armchair was in place. The books, untouched. But something felt wrong. I couldn't describe it. Like the dimensions of the room had shifted slightly. Like gravity tilted in a way my body couldn't adjust to. I stood there for nearly a minute, then turned and went back to my room. The next morning, I reviewed the camera footage. Living room, nothing. Hallway, nothing. Then I opened the file from the bookshelf cam, the one facing the armchair. The recording was clean until 3:12. Then it froze, just for 6 seconds. And in those 6 seconds, a frame. A single corrupted blur. I paused it, zoomed in. There, half concealed behind the armchair, a shape. A silhouette. Tall, thin, no discernible face, but unmistakably human-like. Its head tilted slightly toward the camera, as if it knew it was being watched, as if it was watching back. I scrubbed forward. At 3:18, the feed resumed, but the frame was tilted. The camera had moved, shifted sideways by a few inches, just enough to angle away from the chair. I hadn't touched it. I was asleep. At least, I thought I was. I showed the footage to James. He watched it silently, then leaned back with an exasperated breath. Probably a glitch, he said. You know how these cheap things freeze when they auto-adjust exposure? And that blur, compression artifact. Your brain's making into a figure because you expect to see one. What about the camera moving? Loose stand. Gravity. Whatever. Look, man, you've been on edge. You sure this isn't just stress? I didn't respond. I just stared at the pause frame, that half-seen figure hiding like a shadow behind my furniture. Waiting. That night, I did something different. I left my bedroom door wide open. Lights on. Cameras rolling. And I lay awake, pretending to sleep. Hours passed. 1 a.m., 2:30. Nothing. Then, 3:11. Something creaked. I kept my breathing steady. Eyes closed. A whisper of movement brushed through the air, soft and deliberate. Then, footsteps. Not heavy. Bare. Crossing the hardwood floor, slow, with a slight drag. Not like someone walking freely. More like something that wasn't used to being on this side. I felt it stop at my bedroom door. The air grew colder. Then, 5 long seconds of silence. And then it entered. I could feel it. Not just the movement of air, but heat. Like a breath on the back of my neck. My body screamed to turn, to look, but I stayed still. Then something touched my nightstand. A soft tap, plastic on wood. My alarm clock beeped once. Flickered. Then silence. It stayed for what felt like minutes. Then it moved. I heard the scrape of the chair in the corner. Then nothing. I waited until morning. When I finally opened my eyes, every part of me ached. And on my nightstand, not my alarm clock, but a photograph. Black and white. A boy, maybe 8 years old, standing beside a window in a room I didn't recognize. His face in shadow. His hand against the glass. On the bottom corner, written in faded ink. I used to live here. I stared at the photograph for a long time. The boy, expressionless, blurred, stood in front of a window with crooked blinds. The background was faint, but something about it scratched at my memory. A bookshelf, peeling wallpaper, a chipped doorframe. I flipped the photo over. Blank. No markings, no date. Just a message on the front. I used to live here. I hadn't printed it. I'd never seen it before. Yet something in my gut whispered, "This is real." I tried to shake it off. Tried to keep moving. Showered. Dressed. Poured coffee. But when I went to open the door to leave, I froze. The lock was gone. Not just broken. Gone. No screws. No jagged edges. Just a perfectly smooth hole where it should have been, as though the metal had evaporated clean from the wood. I pressed my hand to the frame, half expecting it to crumble. But the door felt solid. I didn't know what was worse, the idea that someone had removed it while I slept, or that it had simply vanished. I stepped outside and checked the hallway. Quiet. Normal. The neighbor's doors still intact. Mail on the floor, the usual musty scent of too many decades in one building. I walked back in, closed the door, and leaned my forehead against it. Something had changed. The apartment no longer felt like mine. That night, I set up cameras again. All of them. I added a small motion sensor by the kitchen and one facing the bathroom mirror. I turned on every light in the apartment. Let them burn. I didn't care about the bill. Around 11 p.m., I tried to fall asleep. Around 3 a.m., I woke up gasping. The lights were off. All of them. My phone was dead. I lay in darkness, so complete it felt thick. Almost liquid. My breath hitched in my throat, every hair on my arms raised. And then, the voice. Not loud. Not close. It came from above. From the ceiling. A dry, scraping whisper, like old wood dragged across stone. You want the truth? I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. The air was wrong. Too heavy. Like something was pressing down on my chest, pinning me. Then the voice again, closer. You never lived here alone. I passed out. Or I think I did. I woke up twisted in the sheets, soaked in sweat, the morning sun stabbing through the blinds. I stumbled into the hallway, blinking at the light, and stopped. On the wall, written in black ink. Ethan. My legs nearly gave out. A name I hadn't heard or spoken in over 2 decades. A name that scraped across memories I thought were buried too deep to reach. I touched the wall. The ink smeared. Real. Ethan. My brother. He disappeared when we were 12. Just gone. No note. No sign. One moment we were playing in the backyard. The next I was alone. Our mother had gone silent. Just once she said, "He chose another path. Don't speak of it again." I didn't. Until now. I tore through the storage closet. Old boxes. Photos. Paperwork. At the bottom of one water-stained box, I found it. A drawing. Crayon on thick paper. Faded. 2 stick figures. One labeled me. The other E. They stood in front of a crooked little house. One window blacked out. Above it, a scribbled shape like a face. And below it, in childish scrawl, "Ethan lives in the mirror now." My hands went cold. My memory cracked. Pieces surfaced like splinters under skin. We played in mirrors as kids. Made up games. Pretended the reflections were another world. Another us. But then Ethan had started saying things. "They're not reflections," he whispered. "They're watching. I can talk to mine." He stopped eating. Slept during the day. And one night, he was just gone. I opened the bathroom door. The mirror was fogged, even though I hadn't used the shower. On the glass, 5 finger streaks, drawn outward from the center. I stepped closer, and there, in the fog, a face. Not mine, just for a moment, watching me, and smiling. I didn't leave the apartment for 3 days. Not out of fear, exactly, more like paralysis. As if the walls had tightened around me, and every time I reached for the doorknob, something cold inside whispered, "Stay." I sat in the center of the living room with all the lights on. I kept mirrors covered with towels. I deleted every photo on my phone that included my reflection. And every night, at 3:11, I woke up, not because of sound or movement, but because something in the air told me, "He's near." On the 3rd night, I broke. I tore the towel off the bathroom mirror and screamed at my reflection. "Who are you?" For a moment, it didn't mimic me. I watched myself standing still, breathless, but my reflection was smiling. Its eyes were too dark, lips stretched too wide, and then it blinked, out of sync with me. One blink. One deliberate, wrong blink. I stumbled back, hit the sink, and the lights flickered violently. Then the bulb burst above me. Glass rained onto the tile. I shielded my face, heart pounding in my ears. In the shards on the floor, I saw both of us. Me and him. I needed answers. I pulled out my mother's old boxes from the storage shelf. She died years ago. Cancer, quickly and quietly, and I'd never gone through everything. At the bottom of one box was a folder I didn't recognize. Inside, medical reports, drawings, and a school letter dated 1998. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Following several incidents of dissociation and distressing reports involving imaginary entities in reflective surfaces, we recommend Ethan undergo extended psychiatric observation. I dropped the letter. Buried beneath it, a photograph. Me and Ethan, side by side. He looked pale, thin. His eyes didn't focus on the camera. We stood in front of a mirror. In the mirror, only one of us was reflected. Me. Ethan's side was empty. I turned the photo over. In Mom's handwriting, taken 2 days before the disappearance. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Instead, I sat facing the bathroom mirror, camera recording beside me. Ethan, I said quietly, are you there? Nothing. I remember you. I remember the games, the hiding, the way Mom changed after you left. I know what you said, but I know now that you didn't just run away. Silence. Then, frost spread across the glass. A slow spiral, blooming from the center outward. The room temperature dropped instantly, my breath fogged in the air. I stood. The mirror shimmered. Then, a word appeared, etched from the inside. Finally, I stepped closer, and the mirror rippled like water. I reached out, trembling. For the first time, I heard him. Tommy. His voice was small, familiar, childlike, but beneath it, something deeper, older, like another voice riding beneath his. Come back. I ran, out of the room, out of the apartment, into the stairwell, barefoot, dizzy. I didn't stop until I hit the street, breathing hard, and that's when I saw it. My apartment window, 5 floors above, still lit, and me, standing in it, watching me. I didn't go back up right away. I stood on the sidewalk beneath my own window, staring up at the figure. It looked like me, same height, same posture, but something was wrong with how it moved. Too still, too smooth, like a marionette when the puppeteer forgets to breathe. And even though it was hundreds of feet away, I knew it was looking directly at me. Not curious, not afraid, just waiting. When I finally forced myself back inside the building, the hallway felt quieter than usual. No hum of appliances, no buzzing light fixtures. Just a suffocating silence that stretched from the elevator to my door, which somehow was open, just a crack. I hadn't left it like that. I stepped inside. Everything looked untouched, too untouched. The bed made, curtains aligned. No sign of the panic I'd fled with, as if the apartment had tidied itself in my absence. On the floor by the mirror, my phone lay where I dropped it. The screen was cracked. The recording still open. I pressed play, hands shaking. At first, just silence. Then breathing. Not mine. Low. Labored. And then, words. Tommy, you forgot the room. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I paced. Those words echoed inside me. You forgot the room. I began tearing through the apartment, measuring, knocking on walls, checking for inconsistencies. And finally, in the hallway near the bookshelf, I found it. A hollow knock. The wall didn't sound like plaster. It sounded thin. I pushed the shelf aside, exposing old, bubbled wallpaper beneath. I tore at it, heart pounding, until I found it. The faint outline of a door. A door sealed over with drywall and paint. And in the center, barely visible in the dust, a child's handprint. I didn't stop. I found my hammer, crowbar, anything I could use. The plaster cracked under the weight. The wall groaned, then gave way. Behind it, a door. Old, faded green. Scratches along the bottom, as if something had clawed at it. I reached for the knob. It was cold, colder than the room around me. I opened it. The smell hit first. Mildew, dust, something metallic underneath. The room was small. A child's room. Toys scattered across the floor, warped from time. A collapsed crib in the corner. Crayon drawings on the wall, some smeared by time and age. One showed two boys, one standing beside a window, the other reaching into the mirror. Another showed a mirror with no reflection. And on the far wall, in blocky, shaking letters, "Don't trust him." The mirror in the room was different. Oval, antique, framed in iron vines. It looked alive. The glass shimmered faintly, even in the dim light. I stepped toward it. For a moment, I saw myself. Then him, Ethan, still the same age as when he disappeared. Pale, dark circles under his eyes, smiling. But behind his smile, a wrongness. Something old, wearing the shape of my brother. His mouth didn't move, but his voice filled the room. "We shared this place, Tommy. You left me here. Now it's your turn." The mirror shimmered again and showed me something else. Me, standing in the kitchen. Only I wasn't there. I watched myself pour tea, rearrange photographs, stare at the bookshelf, tilting my head unnaturally like a puppet being tested for balance. It had been him all along, or something pretending to be me. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut. The room plunged into darkness, and the mirror whispered, "Choose." The mirror pulsed like a heartbeat. I stood in the dark, barely able to breathe, the only light now coming from the shifting surface of the glass, silvery, oily, alive. Behind it, Ethan watched me, or the thing wearing his skin. "Choose, Tommy," the voice whispered. "Come back. Be with me, or let me take your place." I backed away, heart pounding, searching the walls for the outline of the door, but the room had changed. Grown somehow, the walls stretching, melting into shadow. I was no longer in my apartment, or at least not in my version of it. The mirror began to show images, not just to me, but possibilities, scenes flickering in quick succession. Me, staring at the camera at 3:12 a.m., smiling with dead eyes. Ethan, age 12, scratching at a wall, leaving blood-dark trails. Our mother, crying alone in the kitchen, whispering, "He chose the other path." Me again, older now, looking out from inside the mirror, palms pressed against the glass. "Trapped. It's not just a reflection, Tommy," Ethan said from the other side. "It's a door, and you've already opened it." The glass began to thin. I could see my old bedroom behind him, my real one. It was like he was standing in my world, and I was the one behind the wall now. "No," I said, trembling. "This is my life. You were gone. You disappeared. That was your choice." "No," he hissed. "It was yours. You forgot me. You left me here in the dark with them. Them. The ones that live in the in-between. The ones who speak through reflections. They gave me a way out, but only if you take my place." The mirror flickered again, and for a split second, I saw myself on the other side. Looking back, expressionless. I had seconds, maybe less. Either I gave in or I fought. I remembered something. In one of the old letters from the box, there had been a phrase scribbled in the margin, a warning from Ethan's old-school therapist. Don't speak to the reflection. Don't speak its name. And never agree to the trade. I reached for the hammer, still clutched in my hand. My fingers were numb. My voice shook. "I'm sorry," I whispered, "but I'm not coming with you." Ethan's smile faded. "Then I'll take you anyway." The surface of the mirror burst open, not glass, but liquid shadow pouring out like smoke. Hands, thin, childlike, but far too long, reached for me. I swung the hammer. Hard. Once. Twice. On the third hit, the mirror cracked, then shattered. The sound was like a scream. Not from Ethan. From everything inside. The room shook. The drawings on the walls blackened. The air itself tore open with a groaning, endless howl. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor of my living room. Daylight. The sealed door was gone. The wall completely solid. No cracks. No green paint. As if the hidden room had never existed. The camera on the bookshelf lay on its side, blinking red. I picked it up and checked the footage. The last recording was of me, staring at the mirror. Then static. Then nothing. The police didn't believe much. I told them someone broke in, messed with the apartment, tampered with the wiring. They said there was no sign of forced entry, no fingerprints but my own. A week later, I moved out. The landlord didn't ask why. He just handed me my deposit with a knowing glance, as if he'd seen this before. Some nights in the new place, I still wake up at 3:11, out of breath, heart racing. I keep all the mirrors covered now, except one, the one in the hallway I pass every morning. Sometimes when I glance at it quickly, I still see him, just for a second, smiling.